Table exercises for this course will show you the basics of creating simple tables using both the tab keys and the table function methods. We will recreate these. When this project is done as an exercise in class, in an actual classroom, I would hand out sheets of paper printed with these tables on them, and the students would be expected to measure everything with a GA96 graphic arts ruler, measure the type size, measure the column widths, measure the margins, measure the frame size, and each of these would have to be created on your measurements. That's a little more difficult to do as an online course. So I'm going to give you all the measurements as I demonstrate the technique right now. To create the golf and tennis table, I first have to know what the size of that border is, which would be the size of the actual table and the size of the document, in case this is to be something that would be perhaps made into an EPS or a PDF that might be inserted someplace else as a graphic. So Command N new document if I was starting fresh, and the size is 30 picas by 21 picas. I use 30 picas by 21 picas because the default measurement in InDesign is picas. 30 picas would be 5 inches, 21 picas would be 3.5 inches. But I'll do this in picas because most of my measurements will be in picas and points. It's one page. It's not a facing page document. There's only one page. So I won't have that checked. If I check that, it tends to keep everything over on the right side of the screen as though it's the first page of a facing page document. Margins. The margins I measured were 1.5 picas on the left and right and 10 points at the top and bottom. So I'm going to make sure this is not locked. So in other words, I don't want, if I put 10 points in here, I don't want it to be 10 points on all sides. So unlink that, 10 points top, 10 points bottom, but the left and right are 1/4 inch or 1.5 picas or 1p6 or 1.5 p, again 1p6. And I'll create my document. So there it is. I have my text already set over here and no character styles or formats applied to it. This is just a default Minion Pro regular 12-point type on 14.4 points auto lead. I'm going to Command C copy that and paste it over here. Usually students would be required to typeset this. Command Option I, I'm going to turn on my hidden characters, and you can see that I already have tab characters inserted where the columns should be indicated. I'm going to Command A, select all, and make all of this Helvetica Standard. No. Helvetica Neue. You can use Helvetica Standard. I'm going to use Helvetica Neue. And a lot of it is Helvetica Neue 55 or Roman, so I'll change that to Helvetica Neue Roman. Mostly it is 12 point on 14 points, not 14.4 auto lead, but an actual 14 points. My first 3 lines, golf and tennis specialty centers and warm-up clothing sale, should all be centered. So I'll press the center alignment button or Command-Shift-C. Command-Shift-L left, Command-Shift-R is right, Command-Shift-C is centered, Command-Shift-J is justify with the last line left. This is Command-Shift-C centered. Golf and tennis needs to be bold or Helvetica Neue 75, and it needs to be 24 point. And it says 24 on 24, being the first line and the only line that's in 24, that may not make any difference, but I'll follow the instructions to make it 24 on 24. Now you'll notice that there's a little gap here between my margin and the top of my type, and that's because the default alignment for the stroke on my text frame, which is the border for this ad, is centered on the path. If I set the stroke to the outside of the path, my headline meets the margin guide. Command B, text frame options, baseline option, cap height. The spacing for almost everything else is 12 on 14. An exception would be sale good through Wednesday and Cumberland, Oakland Hills, and Southgate locations. Those are set different, but all of the stuff that's 12 point with a lead of 14 point. However, I needed to move warm up and clothing sale down so that it is 28 points from specialty centers. Now I could stick another return in there, but that's bad form. So for warm up and clothing center in the paragraph control panel or on the paragraph palette, I'm going to add a space before of 14 points. That would be P14. I need a row of dots under here, and based on the spacing, those look to me like a border called Japanese dots. I'm going to use Command Option J, paragraph rules, or you'll find that on the paragraph palette in the hamburger menu at the side, paragraph rules, or on the paragraph control panel at the top, but I know that it's Command Option J, so I'll do that. And it's a rule below, so I'll turn on rule below. I determine that it will be 4 points thick. It will be text color, or it could be black. This is all black and white text, so text color works. If I had a colored headline, I might want this to be black. Gap color. I'm going to have gaps because I'm going to use Japanese dots. I don't want the gap color to be anything because otherwise that fills in the space between my dots. You can see if it was yellow, it would look like that. I'm going to say none. I'm going to have it match the column width, but I'm going to add a left indent, which I determined to be about 8 picas on the left and about 8 picas on the right. And it needs to be offset so that it spaces between specialty centers and warm-up clothing. Since I've got 14-point lead, 7 point should put that about centered. So far, so good. Sale specials, regular and now. This line, the headings for the table, should also be in bold. So I'll just Command Shift B that. Or in the paragraph panel at the top, I can select bold from my list. Or on my character palette, I can select bold from my styles list here. I also need to move it down, and this is not a full extra 14 points below warm up and clothing sale. It's actually only 10 points lower, or 24 points baseline to baseline from warm up to sales specials. So for sales specials, I'm going to, in my paragraph control panel or on my paragraph palette, find the window that shows a space before and add 10 points. I also need to do the same below that. So again, in my paragraph control panel, I'm going to add 10 points below it. So I'm keeping all of my lead at 12 on 14 and only adding a secondary lead or space before, space after in order to increase that distance where needed. Down here, Cumberland Mall, actually Cumberland Mall and Sale Good Through Wednesday, these look like they're going to be centered. So I'll try centering that. They should be 9-point type, and Helvetica Neue medium or 65. With Sale Good Through Wednesday, March 31st, 66 medium italic. I can also Command Shift I to italicize that. I'm going to have to spread these out, but I'll do that later after I get the table done. For my table, I'm going to select everything that will be in the table And then Command-Shift-T, set up a tab alignment with my tab dialog box. Actually, if I get this a little lower, and then Command-Shift-T, I should be able to get this to snap to the width of the column, which is a little handier. Now, I've measured the distance from the left margin to where the decimal places are, which are what the alignment of the numbers will be based on. And the alignment of the first column based on the decimal is 21 picas. So right here, I can put 21p and jump that over there. And again, I'm using not a left alignment, left alignment or a right alignment, but a decimal alignment. Doesn't matter so much when these are all under $100, but if like one of these was $183, which seems like a lot of money for a Nike warm-up suit, if I use left alignment, if I use right alignment, if I use left alignment, it doesn't quite work. If I use right alignment, it works. But I like to use decimal alignment on things that involve numbers to make sure that they stay aligned in decimal columns. I need another one at, according to my measurements, 25p. So I'm going to stick one over here somewhere, and then just in the X window, make that X, or from the left margin, 25p3 is what that works out to be, which brings the number close to the margin. Okay, I'm almost done, but I need dot leaders. So again, selecting the entire table. Actually, I'm going to apply the same tab stops here, except that I want these to be center aligned because I want reg to center over the price. That was at 21p. And now to center over the numbers, that was at 25p3. As a center aligned. Dot leaders. Again, selecting all lines in the table. I'm going to select this tab stop, and where it says leader, I need at least one dot. Those to me are too close together. So I'm going to do space dot and see how I like that. I prefer that. I'm going to do a couple other things here. I got to take that one out of there. Now you'll notice there's kind of a gap on the original between the end of the dot leader and the beginning of the prices. You could do that by messing around with some extra tab stops or something, but I think if you put a Command-Shift-N, which is an N space and the same width as a numeral in front of each of those, that would give you a little bit of air. Almost done. Now, Cumberland Mall, Oakland Hills, Southgate also needs to be 10 points away from the stuff that's above it. So in my paragraph panel, for space above, I'll add 10 points here. And then I want these spaced out. I could set tabs for that, but it seems like a lot of trouble to get those tabbed exactly where I want them. If I select this line and make it force justify, and then give it a left and right indent, and I'd say a left and right indent of maybe 3 picas. That might be too much. Let's say 1.5 picas. And you'll notice I have fixed spaces in here. If I take that out and take that one out, that's not quite the way I want it to read, is it? So in the type pull down, insert white space, fixed width, non-breaking space. And again, I can Command C copy that, move it over to Oakland Hills here, delete that, and Command V, put that in there, and that's reasonably close to the original. I have a border on this thing, and the border is black, and it's 1 point. You'll also see that up here in the control panel. I have it set to the outside because if I set it to the inside, it actually changes the position of my text. But I think I'll go ahead and do that and set it to the inside, and you'll see a slight shift on everything, but that's acceptable. So that's a simple table setup. And I'll save that as golf tennis exercise.